Hello and welcome to the next tutorial for the Ultimate Turn-Based Battle System for Unity. In this video, we are going to take a look at the Status Effects tab inside the custom Ultimate Turn-Based Battle System window. Status effects are one of the most important systems for creating strategic and interesting turn-based battles. They allow you to create effects that can influence characters over time, change their stats, damage or heal HP, restore or drain MP, and create more depth during combat. For example, you can use status effects to create things like poison, burn, regeneration, strength buffs, defense debuffs, MP recovery, curses, blessings, or any other effect that fits your RPG. For this tutorial, we will stay on the Status Effects tab. The Status Effects tab is used to create status effect data assets. These assets can later be used by skills, items, heroes, enemies, and battle logic. A status effect is basically a reusable effect definition. This means you create it once, save it as an asset, and then you can assign it wherever it is needed. For example, you could create a status effect called Burning Soul. This effect could reduce HP every turn for a certain number of turns. Later, you could assign Burning Soul to a fire skill, a cursed item, or an enemy ability. This makes status effects very flexible, because the same effect can be reused across different parts of your game. Now let's look at the general setup of a status effect. At the top of the Status Effects tab, you can assign the visual information of the status effect. This includes the status effect sprite. The sprite can be used to visually represent the effect in the UI or during battle. For example, a burn effect could use a fire icon, a poison effect could use a green skull icon, a defense buff could use a shield icon. Next, you can define the status effect name. This is the name of the effect. The name should be clear and easy to understand, because it helps you identify the effect later when assigning it to skills, items, heroes, or enemies. Below the name, you can write a status effect description. The description explains what the effect does. For example, for a burn effect, the description could be loses HP each turn from burning flames. For a strength buff, the description could be increases strength for a few turns. The description is useful for organizing your content and can also be used later in UI elements to display status effect information to the player. After the general information, you can add the actual effect logic. To add an effect, click the Add Effect button. This creates a new status effect entry. A single status effect can contain one or multiple effect entries. This means you are not limited to only one effect per status effect asset. For example, you could create a curse that reduces HP each turn and also lowers defense. Or you could create a blessing that restores MP each turn and increases magic strength. This makes it possible to create more complex effects from multiple smaller effect parts. Each effect entry can affect HP, MP, or a stat. You can use the checkboxes to decide what this effect should influence. If Affect HP is enabled, the effect changes the target's HP. This can be used for damage over time or healing over time. For example, Poison or Burn could subtract HP each turn. Regeneration could add HP each turn. If Affect MP is enabled, the effect changes the target's MP. This can be used for MP recovery, MP drain, or magic-based resource effects. For example, a mana regeneration effect could restore MP each turn. A silence curse or magical drain could reduce MP over time. If Affect stat is enabled, the effect changes one of the target's stats. This is useful for buffs and debuffs. For example, you could increase strength, reduce defense, increase speed, lower magic defense, or modify any other stat that exists in your Stats tab. Next, we have the effect type. The effect type controls whether the effect adds to a value or subtracts from it. For example, if you create a poison effect, you would usually use subtract on HP. If you create regeneration, you would use add on HP. For a strength up buff, you would use add on the strength stat. For a defense down debuff, you would use subtract on the defense stat. The effect strength defines how strong the effect is. For example, if a burn effect subtracts HP with an effect strength of 12, the target loses 12 HP whenever the effect triggers. If a strength up effect adds 5 to strength, the target receives a strength bonus of 5 while the effect is active. Depending on your game balance, these values can be small and simple or much larger. Next, we have frequency. Frequency defines when the effect should be applied. For example, an effect can happen once, each turn, or based on another available timing option in the system. This is important because not every status effect should behave the same way. A healing item effect might apply once immediately. A poison effect should usually apply each turn. A stat buff should usually stay active for a duration and modify the stat while it is active. So when creating a status effect, always think about when the effect should happen. Should it happen immediately? Should it happen every turn? Should it stay active for a limited time? Should it last for the entire battle? This leads us to duration. Duration defines how long the status effect should stay active. The system supports different duration types. For example, a status effect can last until the next turn, until the end of battle for a specific number of turns, or use other available duration options depending on the effect setup. If you select number of turns, you can define how many turns the effect should last. For example, a poison effect could last for 4 turns. A strength up effect could last for 3 turns. A short defensive buff could last until the next turn. A long curse could last until the end of battle. Duration is one of the most important parts of balancing status effects. A very strong buff should probably not last too long. A weak damage over time effect can last longer. A powerful debuff might need a shorter duration so it does not become too strong. Below the duration settings, you can also assign a damage number prefab. This allows the status effect to show damage or healing numbers when it applies HP or MP changes. For example, a poison effect could use a red damage number prefab. A healing over time effect could use a green healing number prefab. This gives the player clear visual feedback when the status effect triggers. After setting up the effect, you can save the status effect asset by clicking the Save Status Effect button. Once saved, the status effect can be used in other parts of the battle system. Now let's talk about how status effects are used after they are created. Status effects can be assigned to skills. For example, you could create a fireball skill that deals fire damage and also applies burn. You could create a poison strike skill that deals physical damage and applies poison. You could create a rally cry skill that applies a strength up buff to the party. Status effects can also be assigned to items. For example, an antidote item could remove a poison effect. A potion could restore HP immediately. A magic herb could restore MP over time. A battle drum item could increase strength for a few turns. Status effects can also be placed directly on heroes or enemies if you want a character to start with a specific effect already active, or if your own custom logic applies effects during battle. During battle, the status effect system on heroes and enemies manages active status effects. It stores which effects are currently active on the character and applies their logic based on frequency and duration. For heroes, this is handled by the status effect system component. For enemies, this is handled by the status effect system AI component. These systems allow status effects to interact with HP, MP, and stats during battle. This is where status effects become very powerful for game design. They allow you to create interesting trade-offs, enemy mechanics, boss phases, support skills, tactical buffs, and long-term battle pressure. In the next tutorials, we will continue with the other tabs of the Ultimate Turn-Based Battle System window and look at how they work together to create complete turn-based RPG battles. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more tutorials and updates about the Ultimate Turn-Based Battle System.